This is Presentation 3 of the New York State Grades 3 to 8 ELA Rubric and Scoring Training Series, the 2-point Constructed Response Rubric. This section of the training will explain the use of the new 2-point rubric for scoring short, constructed responses. Please have a copy of the rubric handy. You may wish to make notes directly on the rubric. While all ELA constructed response questions are writing questions, the 2-point questions are more focused on reading comprehension. Each question is aligned with a specific Common Core standard. The 2-point questions ask students to synthesize information in the text or texts, make a claim or inference, that is, draw a conclusion and answer the question, and to support their claim with evidence from the text or texts. The questions are designed so that an inference is required. Simple recall from the text is not enough to earn full credit. There are multiple ways to respond to each question and no one right answer. The inference a student provides must be valid and supported by details from the texts. If you do not have a separate copy of the 2-point rubric, you can find one in the Short Response Guide Set handout. You may wish to remove it from the handout package so that you may refer to it while reviewing the student responses. The rubric looks like this. We will look at each score point in detail. The features of a 2-point response are that valid inferences and/or claims from the text where required by the prompt are evident. There's evidence of analysis of the text where required by the prompt. Relevant facts, definitions, concrete details, and/or other information from the text are used to develop the response according to the requirements of the prompt. There is a sufficient number of facts, definitions, concrete details, and/or other information from the text as required by the prompt, and the response should be written in complete sentences where errors do not impact readability. A 1-point response has the following features. It's most likely a literal recounting of events or details from the text as required by the prompt. There are some relevant facts, definitions, concrete details, and/or other information from the text to develop the response according to the requirements of the prompt, and you might see incomplete sentences or bullets. A 0-point response features a response that doesn't address any of the requirements of the prompt, or it's totally inaccurate. There may be no response, a totally blank answer. A response that's not written in English is scored as a 0, and a response that's unintelligible or indecipherable, that also merits a 0. Take a look at the bottom of the rubric. Notice that if the prompt requires 2 texts and the student only references 1 text, the response can be scored no higher than a 1. To summarize, responses at each score point will look like this. At a score point 2, responses will have an inference and the required supporting details. At a score point 1, there are multiple ways to achieve a score point 1. A response could be a mostly literal recounting of the events or details, or it could just contain a valid reference but insufficient details, or it might just contain a valid inference. A score point 0 will not address any requirements of the prompt, or it might be totally inaccurate. Knowing the rubric is necessary to score accurately, but you'll need to also become familiar with the guide papers provided as well. Think of it like this. The rubric tells us what a response at each score point looks like, but the guide papers show us what the responses look like at each score point. Scorers will need to reference their guide papers while scoring as well. We'll take a look at those in a different presentation.